Welcome back to the #1 breakfast show in the country, Morning at NTV, with me, Romeo Busiku. When the National Unity Platform Party moved from the People Power Movement in July of 2020, little to no one knew that 6 months later there would be the biggest opposition political force within the country, having clinched over 60 seats, mainly within the central region, that is in the just concluded presidential and parliamentary elections on January 14th. Now we are talking about the National Unity Platform Party. Why did they actually lose outside the central region, and so forth? We also want to know, to get a status update on what is happening to the livelihood of the NUP leader, Rubogonya, who has been held by the military in house detention since January 14th. He hasn't been able to leave his house, and it contends this is another mission by the state to stop him from petitioning the election. But I do have the Secretary General of the National Unity Platform Party, that is David Louis Rubogonya, who joins me right now in studio. Would like to know what is happening within the National Unity Platform. How is Rubogonya doing, and what is the status of these election petitions, and will they bear any fruit moving forward? Louis is right here. Good morning, sir.
Good morning to you.
All right, let's first get a status update on what is happening to Rubogonya. How is he doing now, following the invasion of the military at his house?
The Honorable Robert Chagulanyi is still under house arrest. He's still restricted in his home, pretty much. The entire home is surrounded by the military, garrisons of soldiers, you know, of all shades and color, surround his home up to now. You have, you know, the regular UPDF, you have military police, you have police, the Uganda Police Force itself, then you have operatives moving in all sorts of other uniforms. So that is the situation at his home. You know, the other day they broke into his, they jumped over the fence, and you know, when we had an opportunity to see him very briefly, we found some of them seated, you know, within the compound precincts. So that is the situation he's in, of course. But he's strong. He knows for sure that he won this election. He has no doubt about that. He knows that the election was rigged, was riddled with a lot of irregularities. And so he's very, very strong. He knows that Ugandans are with him, as they have always been.
You're telling me right now that the National Unity Platform still contains that it won the election despite having secured only 34% of the vote against Museveni's 58% of the vote.
Everyone in Uganda knows the kind of election we had. That is, if you choose to call it an election. But everyone knows what exactly happened in this under the circumstances. So we are still trying to gather our evidence, like we have clearly said, and at the right time we're going to present it to the whole world to see.
What is the status update on the election petitions since January 14th?
Yeah, we know we've been telling the country that ordinarily, under ordinary circumstances, you should go to court and challenge such an election. But there are many considerations to take into account in this country. Looking at many factors, just right from the nature of courts that we have and the precedents that we have seen, but also the difficulty in collecting the evidence that you need to present before a court. So far, over 8,000 of our DRF forms have been confiscated by the police and the military. 5 young people have been attacked or arrested by the police and the military, and you know, asked for these DRF forms, and they've been taken away. We've written to the director of CID, we've written to the crime intelligence head, and said, return these DRF forms because we want to use them to challenge this election. But up to now, they've not been able to give them to us.
Louis Rubogonya, you contend that this election was rigged, but according to the facts we are getting, the National Unity Platform swept all the central Buganda seats, almost all of them. More than 60 seats was swept by you, the National Unity Platform Party. But then what we saw outside the central Buganda, if you go to Jinja, you only clinched 1 seat. Manjeri Chabakutika won the Jinja Woman MP seat. You have the NUP Vice President Eastern Uganda, Mr. Nambeshe. He's the only one who clinched or retained his Manjia County seat.
Yeah, of course, you know, first of all, the presidential election, or people who vote for the president, do not necessarily vote for members of parliament under the same political party. And the reasons are varied. You know, for example, that most of these incumbent MPs are NRM, and they have the resources. They're able to do a lot of things to influence the electoral process within their areas and that kind of thing. For sure, what we know is that for the presidential election, and it's glaring, every Ugandan can see that. But even for members of parliament, if you know the levels of intimidation, the levels of violence that took place in the outskirts, because here in Uganda, you know the levels of consciousness, the levels of awareness, the levels of resistance are higher. And that is why, throughout history, you see the rigging levels in Uganda are lower. And maybe even some other parts, like Busoga, we actually won Busoga for the presidency, for the presidential election. And other places, which are closer, where people are more enlightened, people are farmer. But if you go into the villages, and we're even seeing it on the campaign trail, that, you know, the police here, people are used to hearing tear gas sounds and that kind of thing. But if someone is in Kotido and or Kaperebiong or somewhere, and then you throw a grenade in their midst, they have never had this sound. It brings back memories of war or something like that, and you see all of them scampering for safety. So that is what you get to see in these elections and the election results. It is not that we swept Uganda and did not sweep other regions. No, in fact, it's because the levels of rigging, for example, in Western Uganda, it was just pathetic. We had a call center on election day, and people were calling in to tell us what was going on in the different parts of the country. In Western Uganda, I cannot even stand here and say there was an election, because at some point the police and the military would come and just chase people out from the polling station, and people are left there wondering what to do. In some cases, people went to the to vote, and they were told that, you know, you cannot vote for the vote for the president is done. You just come here to vote for MP. You know, and some of these recordings you've had, some of them are video recordings, others are audio recordings. They're out there. The whole country has seen them.
According to many of the political experts I was speaking to about, I was trying to make sense about the way the voters, you know, decided to choose their leaders, with the central region going to NUP, but then the rural areas going to the NRM. They were saying maybe it's because of the campaigning nature of the National Unity Platform Party, meaning all the forces were focused on the central region. We saw a lot of focus on the central region, not the rural areas like the West Nile, Eastern Uganda, and Western Uganda, being the reason why we saw you clinch seats in the central region and then lose in the other areas, the rural areas.
That is not true, first of all, because as you know, we actually did more campaigning outside Uganda than in Uganda, because we began with West Nile, went to Lango, went to Acholi sub-region, went to Western region, and you know that, for example, most of the places where the Electoral Commission all of a sudden said we could not campaign are in Uganda. So we are not allowed to campaign in Kampala, we are not allowed to campaign in Kalungu, in Masaka, in Kalangala, you saw what happened, and many other districts. Buvuma, Mukono, and other places where the military just said you cannot campaign here. But in fact, we tried to reach other places, and you know what happened. For example, in Western Uganda, which trail I was part of, you know, these guys would take you, I don't know how many kilometers away from the town, and say you're just going to be able to talk to people there, and even put barricades to try and prevent people from just coming. I was in Ntungamo, for example. There were thousands and thousands of people standing on afar off who wanted to come and join the meeting which we were having. And for some reason, the police and the military blocked them. So we had just a small gathering of people. It was big, in the eyes of the press, but if all people had been allowed to come, we would be having thousands and thousands of people attending this meeting.
So the loss of the of the National Unity Platform Party, that is not linked anywhere to mobilization, but rather rigging, like you contend.
It is both, but also I just really wouldn't want us to use the word loss, because we did not lose this election. We did not lose this election. We won this election. We were rigged. Like I said, in a situation where the state all of a sudden switches off the internet and says you cannot do anything, intimidates the media. You saw media houses were not actually covering what was happening at some of these polling stations, the kinds of things that we're seeing now in videos. People recorded their videos and sent them out. Why do you think the media was not able to capture these and put them out there? Some journalists put up evidence of rigging on social media, and they would later come and say they received calls and were forced to delete whatever they had put there. In some cases, you saw media houses actually writing stories about how the election was rigged and then being forced to put down these stories. So, in essence, it is clear what happened in this election. It was just a sham. It was a mockery of democracy. And it is unfortunate.
The government is actually accusing the National Unity Platform of trumpeting talk of a Plan B to cause an insurrection where you would actually topple this government. That is an information that came through on Thursday last week. That's according to the government, that you've been trumpeting talk of a Plan B, and that's why we are seeing the mass deployment within the country. That's why we've been seeing many of the NUP supporters being picked up because of this intelligence information. Do you subscribe?
You know, the government of President Museveni has and they have been very clear that they are violent, they believe in violence. But in order to deal with any opponent, they always love to cluster them as violent in order to deal with them violently. And that we've been very clear on that. Because they know that they cannot beat us on ideology, they cannot beat us on argument, they cannot beat us on asking them questions. They cannot beat us on accountability. We've been asking them to account for the past 35 years that they've been in power. Because they know that they don't have answers to those questions, all they resort to is violence. We have been clear as a National Unity Platform that we are a non-violent political movement. We have made it clear that we want to use non-violent means to change government in this country. That is why we participated in an election and said we are going to overwhelm these people in an election. We believe in using ballots and not bullets. Because violence begets violence. The reason why the NRM regime has permeated violence is because it came violently. And we've been very clear that if we take the violent path, we are just simply making sure that violence continues in this country, and we are trying to put an end to that. So, but how does President Museveni and his people stay in power violently? They just want to make sure that, first of all, they cluster you as violent. You saw some of the boxers who were, some of them have been murdered and others are at large, but they've been clearly coming out to say, we are deployed by the police and all these other agencies to come and cause chaos. Because when they cause chaos, then the police can come in and tear gas people and shoot people and that kind of thing. Because they want to deal with us violently, they want to class us as violent. But I want to put it on record and tell whoever is watching us that we believe in non-violence.
According to security, they have intelligence information that allegedly seems to indicate that some boxers were training young people who were going to be used in the protests that were being planned for after the election.
But that's what I'm saying. It's just hogwash. It's not true. I mean, if they have that intelligence information, which is credible, let them present it. You know, let them present it before courts of law. We have a constitution in this country, and our constitution, if you are choosing someone, for example, we have over 3,000 NUP supporters in different prisons across the country. 49 people, including Nubian Lee, Eddie Mutwe, Dan Magic, and others, are at Chitalia. They were just picked up in the night. One selected a view, we don't know where he is up to now. They were picked up from their houses and taken. Some of them were not even presented to court. Those who are presented to court, the state argued that I think 4 rounds of ammunition or 4 magazines or something like that. All the 49 people were found with them, which is ridiculous, which does not make legal sense or any logical sense whatsoever. But then now these people, because they want to they really want to suppress you, they have to link you to such things. You saw what happened when Honorable Chagulanyi was in Arua. The state came up and said, oh, we found a gun in his hotel room, which eventually disappeared. No one knows where it went. But the reason why they do that, the point I'm telling you, they just come up and say, oh, we have intelligence information, which they will never present to the public. They will tell you, oh, we have intelligence information, which they will never present before a court of law. But the reason why they do that is simply because they want to deal with you militarily, because they do not know how else to deal with a population that has completely rejected them, except by suppressing them, arresting them, imprisoning them without trial.
The NUP leader, Robert Chagulanyi, hinted that he would actually be petitioning the International Criminal Court, or an international court. Actually, he mentioned an international court. Yeah. What court is it? Is it ICC? And what kinds of cases are you going to be filing with these international courts?
The Honorable Chagulanyi has made it clear that we are going to use, and we have been very clear as NUP, that we're going to use all legal avenues, both domestic and international. One of the courts that is of course at our disposal is the International Criminal Court, where, you know, the Honorable Chagulanyi has already made a complaint previously about the violations that have been going on, the extreme abuses of human rights that have been going on in this country. And what is interesting is, you know, these people are very, very shameless and hypocritical. Uganda was the first country to, you know, file a case with the ICC, that the Joseph Kony case, and the others. And
he was indicted 2006.
Yeah. And the same people are saying, no, why go to the international courts, why not domestic courts? But they ratified the Rome Statute which is now part of our laws in this country, and all other international covenants and treaties to this effect. But when it comes to them, they say, no, no, you're now going to foreign courts, why are you going to foreigners? But if you have exercised a lot of control on the Ugandan courts, people are trying to go to court, you're just stealing the evidence, arresting them left, right, and center. Where do you want them to go?
Now, retired Colonel Kizza Besigye, who abandoned the presidential race, that is on August last year, he said he's not going to be running for the presidency. Instead, he's going to be focusing on Plan B, and Plan A will be handled by other opposition loyalists. But then in December the following year, we did hear from the ICC, which came out and said the case that was filed by Kizza Besigye, the Kasese case about the massacre, that did not amount to crimes against humanity. Remember, government says around 84 people were killed in Kasese, and if you look at the protests in 2020 and 2019, around November 18th and 19th, there were around 54 people, according to government, who were killed. So if ICC is saying the 84 people who were killed in Kasese in 2016, that case does not amount to crimes against humanity, how sure are you that your case, with only 54 people who have been killed during this electoral process or more, might be taken on by ICC? Yeah,
you know, the International Criminal Court, if you look at the Rome Statute, I think it's Article 13 and moving forward, the threshold for, you know, cases that can be filed at the ICC is always a bit high. The ICC somehow believes that for a case to amount to crimes against humanity, then it should be widespread, and of course, they're also trying to say that there was a provocation from security forces, etc., etc. I think these cases are distinguishable. First of all, the complaints that we are filing in international courts and tribunals are not just based on an event. We're talking about a pattern.
Enlighten us.
A pattern of you know, targeted attacks on opposition, on
so you think it's premeditated?
Yeah, premeditated, but also we're looking at a pattern that has continued over a long period of time. For example, this whole notion of stray bullets that the government keeps talking about, that somehow bullets, you know, just caught these people as if you know, we don't have trained officers to be in charge of their faculties. So we hope that the international courts and tribunals, and I'm just using plural because there are several that we're looking at, can be able to take in these cases and look at the evidence and decide these matters.
But it's largely crimes against humanity?
Yeah, crimes against humanity.
All right. The Secretary General for the National Unity Platform Party, Louis Rubogonya, speaking to us about the latest coming in from the National Unity Platform Party. He's not alone. We are now joined by Chris Baryomunsi. He is the NRM Vice Chairperson for Western Uganda, and he joins us right now. Very good morning, Mr. Baryomunsi. It's a pleasure to have you.
Good morning, sir.
I'm sure you had some trouble with traffic, but you made it.
You know, for the last few months I've been in Kanungu, so
Indeed.
I didn't know traffic exists. The traffic jam in Kampala caught me up, but I'm here.
Yes.
I'm happy to be here this morning. I want to greet my brother here.
A lot has been said by David Louis Rubogonya. He is saying that the NRM orchestrated the biggest election rig that this country has ever seen. Do you also believe this to be true?
No, I don't know whether Mr. Rubogonya was involved in the thick and thin, like I was. This was one of the most free and fairest elections I have participated in, because I was a candidate myself. I went around canvassing for support for the NRM, and it was very difficult to rig, even if anybody had intentions of rigging. For instance, if you talk of, say, multiple voting, I think the Electoral Commission did a very good job. The arrangement was thorough. The agents were quite awake. The ballot papers were big. You couldn't like hold 2 or 3 without the glaring eye of the agents. As far as I'm concerned, this election was free and fair. Each candidate got what actually he had on the ground.
I'm going to quote Louis Rubogonya. He did mention that in Western Uganda, literally no election took place. What do you make of that?
Well, dreaming...
He contends people would come to a polling station, and then the officers, the security apparatus would tell them, we are not voting for the president anymore, go and vote for the MP. Yet voting was still ongoing.
So where did that one take place? Because I come from Western Uganda. So You know, daydreaming is not a crime. You can dream and say this happened. I don't know whether he monitored the elections. I don't know whether he can quote that on this polling station. This is what happened. We were monitoring the elections. You know, you come here and say something. That's an abuse to Ugandans who braved the rain. I was the Kanungu, the rain, the people remain in line to cast their ballot, to cast their votes. So when you come here and say there was no voting in Western Uganda, when people from Western Uganda are watching you, then they put you at your level.
So help us understand what actually happened, Chris Baryomunsi, when it comes to the way the voter decided to choose their leaders. Central Buganda, NUP sweeps almost 60 positions. But then when you look at elsewhere in the country, they barely clinched any seats because you have Manjia County and the Ginger Woman MP seat that was clinched by NUP. But then for you as the NRM, we saw you even take on Rukunjiri, which was an opposition stronghold since 2011. That is Dr. Kizza Besigye's stronghold. So help us understand how the voter chose the leaders during that election.
Well, first
why
of all,
you lost in Central and why you won in the Western Uganda.
Well, first of all, this was a scientific election. It took place amidst COVID-19, and therefore the mode of campaigning, the mode of reaching out the voters was quite different. A big departure from what used to happen when we would have rallies. And, you know, President Museveni was the most disciplined candidate in terms of observing the COVID-19 rules and regulations. Unlike our friend, Honorable Kyagulanyi and a few others who flouted all the rules and would hold big rallies and so forth. But that aside, I think in central Uganda, maybe parts of eastern, there was this wave of excitement, I would say, which to us in NRM we are not very much bothered about because we have seen such a waves in the past. And if you call it a storm, I can as well call it a storm in a teacup. We have seen this in the north in the past where it was very difficult for you to bring out a poster of Yoweri Museveni, but how have they voted now? We have seen similar waves in Teso in 2006 where a blue wave swept through Teso. But what is the situation now? So even this one in central Uganda and the parts of the east, it was just a temporary wave which will be managed.
So you believe it was just a temporary wave, political excitement?
Just excitement. And like many commentators have said, of course, Honorable Kyagulanyi being from Uganda, maybe of course some excitement that people in Uganda have their own. And I am sure, just wait for the 5 years.
You are alluding to sectarian voting. I'll get you more of those views on that particular comment. Sectarian voting within central Buganda region. Well, of course,
disturbing the election process here, but otherwise, all is set in the Kampala Central Division. This is what I can update you for now, and people will be lining up wherever to cast their vote. This is Morning at 10 TV. Stephen in Medium First Way Chibuga will be giving you much more updates within the city center.
Thank you very much, Stephen Mbide. Like I did mention, the ground is already set for the division, councillor and mayoral elections that are already taking center stage. Arm yourself with a face mask, a sanitizer, and ensure that 2 meters social distance to avoid a contraction and the spread of the COVID-19 disease. Behind the scenes, I was still having a conversation with Mr. Chris Baryomunsi and David Louis Rubogonya, and this has been around sectarian voting within the central region. You were still explaining to us, Chris Baryomunsi, how the voters chose their leaders.
Yes, I was saying, first of all, it was a free and fair vote. So all these allegations of rigging and whatever Davis is saying, the good thing Ugandan is participating.
And it seems like you're saying the voters chose Kyagulanyi from the central region simply because he's a Muganda.
I would think so.
Why?
Well, they thought maybe a person from the central for this time around would be president. They forgot that we were choosing a national president who has to be voted by the rest of the country, not Uganda alone. And therefore it amounts to really nothing in my view.
Well, Rubogonya contends that, yes, Rubogonya contends that they managed to sweep Buganda over 60 seats simply because it is hard to rig within the central region.
It is?
It is hard to rig within Buganda or central region because the voters are pretty much alert.
So why didn't they get 100% support if it is hard to rig? No, there was just a wave of excitement around this election that with a lot of falsehoods, blackmail, propaganda, which worked against NRM, which we understand, which we are going to correct in the next 5 years. And that sectarian wave is what gave Davis's party a number of MPs and Honorable Chagulanyi's support. But I can assure you it is short-lived, because you cannot, for instance, say in whatever achievements NRM has registered that Central Uganda has been left behind. No. On the contrary, when you look at some of the studies done to look at the socio-economic indicators, the Central region posts the best statistics, the best indicators. So it was just this kind of temporal sectarian wave that swept across, taking away the ministers and NRM MPs. But like I'm saying, it is just temporary.
David Lewis Rubogonya.
We shall definitely fix it in the next 5 years.
David Lewis Rubogonya, Mr. Chris Baryomunsi contains that the sectarian wave, the red wave, the umbrella wave is short-lived because of it was precipitated by political excitement. What do you make of that?
You know, it is, of course, very unfortunate listening to him say that. Maybe to just ask him a question. When you claim that President Museveni got 90% in Nyabushozi, in Kazo, and those districts, was it sectarian? Is it a sectarian wave also? Is it because people, are you trying to say that Ugandans do not think, they do not know what is best for them, that they base on temporal reasons to vote? I think that's an insult to the people who are watching us. But also, these guys have dismissed us for a very long time. When Honorable Chagulanyi came on, they said, oh, this is excitement, it will soon die down. We went on to win by elections. Oh, no, wait for 2021. And we beat them, hands down. They resorted to rigging elections. And now that he's here, I was just telling him, if they know that they actually won this election, why are they going around arresting people with our polling, with our declaration of results forms and all those other things? And, you know, we've put it out there. We've said, the security forces will say, please bring the DR forms, and we've tasked the Electoral Commission, and I want to task them here. Please bring out the results which you were reading. Show us where the results were coming from, and then we will also show you, we'll present what we have in our DR forms, and then the citizens of this country can be able to compare.
Mr. Chris Baryomunsi, polling agents are being arrested, allegedly, as you know, he has commented. Also, we do know that the presidential candidate, the second runner-up, Robert Chagulanyi, is under house arrest. Now, would such a behavior be warranted under a democratic state like Uganda?
First of all, I'm not quite sure that the agents are being arrested. Like you said, I am the vice chairperson for NRM Western Uganda. I don't have that report, that because NUP had even agents in Kanungu, and they are free and moving all over. And I'm very certain that they have their declaration forms. So to say that the agents are being arrested and the DR forms are being confiscated, the same argument Dr. Kiza Besigye raised last time. So we are used these kind of stories. But you see, at the polling station, when the voting has been completed and the counting and declaration, the agents are given their forms. And in most cases, even the agents photograph these forms to get the evidence kept on the phones. So you cannot say that you don't have copies of the DR forms. You cannot say that. For Honorable Chagulanyi to be under house arrest, it depends on the intelligence which the security forces have. For instance, if he's about to commit crimes after elections, the police and security agencies have all the rights under the law to do preventive arrests. What would be worrying is if he's being beaten or his whereabouts not known, but if he's at his home and being secured at his home, I don't see anything big about this.
Louis Rubogonya, Robert Chagulanyi is under preventive arrest. He's not being actually taken anywhere in jail. We know where he is, Magere, at his home. According to Mr. Chris Baryomunsi, he is safe under preventive arrest simply because they have intelligence information about the activities he was willing to engage in after the election. What do you make of all this?
You know, again, good enough, you know, when you say these things, you say them on TV, and they are there for the record.
And there is instantaneous feedback.
Because what I'm saying is that Mr. Chris Baryomunsi, one time we look back and remember the statement that he's saying when he says that, oh, he's at his home, he's okay, there's nothing problematic about that. What we've seen in this country is people say these things until their turn comes. So one time maybe when he's under house arrest, he will understand that it's actually a very serious issue. But beyond that, a presidential candidate who is challenging an election result needs to go out there and be able to prepare his legal team to challenge that election, if he or she wishes to do so. If Honorable Chagulanyi today wanted to challenge this election in the Supreme Court, how do you expect him to do that when you've held him?
What is your work as a Secretary General? He stood on the platform of a political party.
But he is
the
the
political
chief
party should have the machinery to collect all this information.
It is Honorable
You have
Chagulanyi,
lawyers.
yes.
There is nothing which stops you as a Secretary General with the machinery of the party to collect whatever you have and then submit it to
But
court.
he is a petitioner. If he's a petitioner, he's a petitioner. Therefore, he needs to interact with his legal team and be able to guide them to agree with this, to disagree on the other. Yes, I will do my work as Secretary General. There is work with that we do with the lawyers.
Yes.
But as a petitioner, he needs to be out there,
So,
interact with his lawyers.
Rubogonya,
and
so
do
as
your
we
work.
speak right now, since January 14th, you're telling me Anthony Wameli and the whole NUP legal team hasn't been able to access Robert Chagulanyi?
we were just given access once, briefly, and then told to go away. But
Did
before
you
that,
want
we
to
had,
stay at his home?
we had
I can assure you, let me assure you as a government official, you collect all your information. I'm sure nobody will stop NUP and the Honorable Chagulanyi from going to court.
But do you live in Uganda?
I
Honorable?
do.
Because
I
if you
do.
live in Uganda, you would know that 5 of our people have been arrested and the other forms taken out from them. These have been media reports. People have come out there, have come
So
out.
how many
and
forms were taken? 5 forms.
8,000 of them. I mean, because these are people who are collecting them from the different regions. The gentleman was arrested, 2 young people, one with all the data forms from Kampala and part of Wakiso, another from Busoga, and taken away. The gentleman who we had deployed in Acholi sub-region was arrested, taken to Adega police station. The data forms taken up from him. We followed up with the police. They said, oh, we are still trying to see whether they are genuine or not. They might be falsified. And we told them, we confirmed that this is a party official who we deployed in northern Uganda. So bring the data forms. We have written officially to these agencies. Up to now, there's no response.
Mr. Baryomunsi, don't you think NUP has a strong case if they make it to the Supreme Court and it takes on to hear this case? Because they might contend that because of the limited election campaigning activities during the electoral period, maybe that's the reason why they lost this election. Also, the heavy-handedness of security apparatus and so forth. Don't you think these factors put together, they might have a strong case in the Supreme Court?
Well, I'm not a judge. It's up
And
to
aren't
them.
you afraid as an NRM
No.
stalwart?
First of all, the Supreme Judge are the people of Uganda who cast their vote on the 14th of January, and the results are out and clear. The NRM government and NRM party have in no way tried to stop NUP or any other political party or candidate from accessing the courts. And I think we are still within the time limit of petitioning the Supreme Court. So NUP has all the freedom to assemble the evidence that they have. And if the lawyers are being stopped from accessing Honorable Chagulanyi, I'm sure that can be discussed with the government. You can engage government, and I'm sure the lawyers won't be stopped. And you are free to go to court. What he's saying, the other forms being confiscated by police, just mere propaganda. It's just mere propaganda. NRM is not interested in blocking NUP or any other presidential candidate from accessing the courts of law.
NUP is now talking about going to the International Criminal Court to file cases of egregious human rights violations and, yeah.
Well, again, if he thinks that the ICC has the jurisdiction to handle such a things, you are free to go there. If you want to petition the Pope or God, I think in Uganda there's freedom and rights. You can petition anywhere you want. And you'll get the justice that you deserve. So nobody will stop them from going to ICC. Nobody has stopped them from going to Supreme Court or any other court in
And
the world.
NRM is not scared.
Is not scared at all.
Do you still maintain your position as the NRM and the state that NUP is being funded by foreign entities that want to destabilize this country? Do you still stand by that position?
It's not a question of standing by, but the evidence is abundantly available that the many groups, external groups, have been funding NUP and the Honorable Chagulanyi, the homosexual groups and so forth. If you wanted, if you had alerted me, I would bring you the evidence. We gather all of this intelligence information. We see the trends. We monitor most of the things. I may not say them on television, but it's abundantly clear that there are external forces trying to destabilize the country through elements like NUP.
David Lewis Rubogonya, you have to understand, if government thinks that foreign nationals or foreign entities are funding NUP's activities, security presence will never leave Robert Chagulanyi's house.
You know, it is very laughable listening to him speak. Because, you know, a lot of times these senior leaders, you want to respect them and you want them to... Now, if he says they have evidence that we want to destabilize this country, why don't they present it? Let them prosecute us. There are laws in this country, Honorable Chris Baryomunsi. We have a constitution in this country. We have
But
laws
it is
in this
not
country.
used here as well to prosecute us. We shall use it as and when we feel we should use it.
The point
So
is
just-
that you do not
just relax.
act with impunity. You act within the law. Honorable Chagulanyi's home is not a place of detention. Under the laws of this country, you should not hold someone in a place not gazetted by law. His home is not a detention place. It's not a detention center. So follow the law. If you know that we're involved in any criminal activity, we have the laws of this country. Present your evidence before a court of law and prosecute. You know that, and that's what I'm saying. They pass around this loose talk. You're funded by whoever. You're funded by whoever. Of course, it's hogwash, and I can confirm that those are just falsehoods meant to cast us in bad light, first of all, meant to say that you people are not patriotic, you're not representing the interests of Uganda. And I always ask them, of course, Honorable Chris Baryomunsi was not one of them, but people who went to the bush in the 1980s to fight for democracy and good governance in this country, were they funded by homosexuals? Were they funded by foreigners? What makes you think that the urge which the Musevenis had to go to the bush, Ugandans do not have the same urge to fight for democracy today? What makes you think that this urge to fight for good governance, for the rule of law, against human rights abuses and all that ended? You know, because the people of Uganda are still here, and they are fighting for their rights, they are fighting for good governance. You cannot say that Ugandans cannot struggle on their own for good governance without being funded by foreigners. That is a very, very big insult to the people who are watching us.
So you're telling us right now foreign entities are not funding the National Unity Platform Party?
Of course not. I mean, we have made it very clear that the people who have funded us, all our activities, are Ugandans. Ugandans here, Ugandans abroad, Ugandans. Most of what we do, and we do not have a lot of money. These people are using state resources, and the evidence is all over.
All right.
That they're using state resources, but we have been limited. We failed. Many of our candidates failed to nominate, if you remember, because they did not have the money which NRM was giving to its candidates. So if we were funded by all these people, why we would even have fielded all candidates in all constituencies. But because there were no funds, we even could not nominate all the candidates that we
Could it be because all those channels that would have given you money were blocked by the government? I'll get you on that, Mr. Chris Baryomunsi. When we return, we are going to be talking to Stephen Mbide. He has some new information, some misunderstanding at some polling stations. A very good morning once again, my brother. What's the latest?
Yes, Romeo Busiku,
Raf Kalibala and Nabidio Winnie. What is happening?
No, I wouldn't really say that I have clear facts. You know, I'm dealing with candidates across the country. I don't really know that particular case, but I think we need to just check in our records and see who indeed is supposed to be the official flag bearer.
Seems like Winnie was supposed to be an independent.
Yeah, if that comes out to be true, then the party itself can make a complaint to the
So
Electoral
what
Commission.
they are saying in this clip is that voting is going to continue with the wrong candidate on the ballot. So don't you think that is a recipe for disaster, in that we might have a rerun even after having this election?
Yeah, I think the right thing to do, in my view, would be to continue with that election, and then the anomaly is rectified. So if we find that indeed Kalibala is supposed to be the official NUP candidate, then we can write to the Electoral Commission and tell them to rectify that. Because now you cannot know, if, for example, they stopped the voting and then it turns out that it is the right candidate who was given the flag, then it would disadvantage everyone else who is participating in the election.
All right, that is the latest coming in from City House. Polling station around Wilson Street. Two candidates from the National Unity Platform Party, that is Winnie and Ashraf, battling to be on the ballot. But then it is causing a lot of confusion. If they continue with this election, yes, there could be a rerun later on. So the taxpayer will be the loser in this case if this election continues with all these anomalies in place. I still do have Chris Baryomunsi, the NRM Vice Chairperson, Western Uganda, and also David Louis Rubogonya, the Secretary General, National Unity Platform Party. Well, we were talking about foreign entities funding the National Unity Platform Party, and David Louis Rubogonya, in his defense, mentioned they did not have money during the campaign trail, meaning there was never anyone funding them. And then the other argument from political experts was that maybe it's because government had already gotten intelligence information and closed all these channels that they would have gotten money from. Chris.
Well, the fact remains that we have information that there are foreign agents trying to use political parties, particularly NUP, to cause change in Uganda. And it's good that Ugandans know this and resist this. And if there is any change, it has to be occasioned by Ugandans themselves, not the foreign agents. You can even see how some of the say social media groups like Facebook were behaving, blocking NRM leaders from using Facebook and allowing others to do so. Why? Why? It gives you the foreign element in all this. And of course, there are many reasons why they get involved. They are interested in the oil and so forth, and they think they can make deals with the new government and so forth. So we are aware of all this because we pick all this intelligence information. And in his heart of hearts, he knows. He knows. We know the foreigners have been coming in, even when there was lockdown. So all this information is well known to us. And they had the money. They had the money. The reason why they could not raise candidates in all constituencies was because they didn't have support. Actually, no other party, apart from NRM, was able to raise candidates in all the constituencies. Why? Because they didn't have the support there. The arrangement they had done in the opposition was like basically to concentrate on regions. NUP to concentrate on Central, Honorable Mao to concentrate on the North, Honorable Moriat of FDC, the East, Honorable Mugisha Muntu, the West, in the hope that they would substantially reduce the vote of President Yoweri Museveni so that he didn't get the 50%.
Instead it was split among opposition.
But that didn't work out. It didn't work out. So why he didn't have candidates in, say, my constituency of Chinchizi East? Because he has no structures there. He could hardly get anybody to stand on the NUP ticket, not because of the money. The money they had, but we also understandably, NUP, the new party, they didn't have enough time to do the mobilization, but by and large, they never had the support in the countryside.
Speaking of time, he contests that they did have the time to execute all these mobilization activities, but they were never allowed by security apparatus in the endeavors as they tried to move across the country. We did see NUP leader Chagulanyi being stopped by members of the security from accessing some jurisdictions. You see, when you are a candidate or an aspirant, doesn't mean that the law doesn't apply on you. If you infringe on the law, definitely the law will catch up with you. But it's so true that they were stopped in Kinkiz West. That's in Kanungu. They had a NUP candidate. How did you identify the NUP candidate? They had all the time and the resources to do what they wanted to do and get candidates everywhere. In Kisoro, there were NUP candidates. How did you get NUP candidates in Kisoro? So where they didn't have candidates, I think largely it's because they didn't have the support and somebody willing to stand on the platform. Chris maintains that it wasn't because of the issues that you mentioned, that because you had lack of mobilization in the areas you went to, there was no support, that's why you did lose, not because of the frustrations by security.
Again, it's very painful to listen to that, but first of all, I'll tell you why President Museveni tries to say that we get funding from abroad, from foreigners.
So Museveni saying it is me saying it?
Yeah, you're saying it, but you're echoing what he has been saying, and you're here speaking for the establishment. They try to do that because they already know, first of all, that they're relying on state resources to do political activities, which is illegal and wrong. We saw how much, and I think Sisbag released the report of how much money had been spent through government agencies to fund President Museveni's campaigns, to facilitate his campaigns. We saw him at some point when he blocked all of us from campaigning in some districts. We saw him going to those districts under the auspices of launching government projects. So using the advantage of incumbency to his advantage in an election and that kind of thing, which is both immoral and legally wrong. But they try to show that you have money because they want to, first of all, raise the population's interest in your money. They try to say, these guys actually have money, they're just not giving it to you. But we do not have this money. I'm telling you that Honorable Chagulanyi cannot fail. He will just go and park at a polling station, at a fuel station, and you'll see how many people will just come and are trying to fuel his car. Because all we have is the people's love, the people's support. People support us, people love us out there. People want to identify with us. So it is not that we have money, our activities, and I can tell him that if we just even had 10% of the money they use in these elections, they would be nowhere. But we don't have that kind of money because you saw the kind of money that was exchanging hands, the bribery on election day, etc., etc. So that is to respond to that claim of for foreigners funding us. Now, the question of being able to raise candidates again is, for example, is Chris Baryomunsi telling the country that he did not see how our consultations were blocked? Is he not aware that the laws of this country provide for consultations? Is he not aware that we are supposed to consult 1 year to elections, and every time we try to go out, the police blocked us? Is he not aware that Honorable Chagulanyi's music shows were blocked by security towards the election? And I mean, for 2 years, he was not able to perform anywhere. Now, while they are stopping us from going out there to do mobilization, to speak out, to speak to the people, they are using state officers, RDCs, DSOs, ESOs, and all manner of public servants to do politics. At some point, we saw public officers in places, even in Mbarara, you saw, Monitor reported it, someone standing there and telling all civil servants that you must support NRM. If you don't support NRM, we're going to remove you from your office. These reports have been in the media and everywhere. So I wonder whether he can come here and pretend not to live in this country, because these are facts which every citizen of this country has about what happens. So I'll tell you that, for example, we had, where I was talking about the question of money, we had 350 people who, and we put out the names there, who came and picked our flag. But towards voting, about over 100 of them could not raise the 3 million shillings required to run for office. And NRM people, because they also, many of them do not have this money, especially first-timers, NRM was paying for everyone who was able to get the flag. And these are state resources, as I've been saying, and that's why they use in their mobilization. And all.
What makes you think that they are state resources?
Because where else would you get that money from? You're here saying that we are funded by foreigners. You're not presenting any evidence. You're saying you're going to bring it. But at least for me, I have some form of evidence.
Exhaust that point and we go for a break.
Yeah, because the point I'm making is that we do not have funds to do some of these activities, and they know it. That is why they are always interested in frustrating every channel that would otherwise bring money. But finally, President Museveni was funded when he was in the bush war. He writes in his book, Sowing the Mustard Seed. Libya, they went to Libya, picked money, picked guns, etc. They went to all these other countries. They went to Tanzania to see Julius Nyerere. They went. So what makes them think that when they were fighting against Sobote and Amin, it was right for them to get foreign funding, and us who are struggling to redeem our country, liberate it, cannot also or do not have the right to get funded, to get support?
David Lewis Rubogonya is the Secretary General of the National Unity Platform Party. And of course, he's not alone. We also have Chris Baryomunsi, the NRM Vice Chairperson for Western Uganda. Chris Baryomunsi, you did mention that the internet shutdown was because of the tit-for-tat venture that had Facebook shut down the government pages, and then government also switching off internet as a whole for equity reasons. Well, I'm going to get you on that situation, because Lewis Rubogonya is saying the internet shutdown was orchestrated. Ivan Walinyo reporting live from Entebbe. Those 6 candidates, that's the Entebbe municipality race. 2 of them are independents. I still have the NRM Vice Chairperson, Western Uganda, Chris Baryomunsi. He's not alone. I also have the Secretary General for the National Unity Platform Party, David Lewis Rubogonya. Let's talk about the internet shutdown. Chris Baryomunsi, the president himself did mention that it was a tit-for-tat venture. Facebook having removed pages that were allied to the government and the Ministry of ICT, they also decided to switch off the internet, not to give leeway to the other to other groups to operate on social media and cause chaos during the election. But then I was talking to David Lewis Rubogonya, and he was telling me the reason the internet was switched off is because rigging was going to be taking center stage, and government did not want people to be seeing what was happening.
Well, of course, he's not from government, so he didn't know the reason why it was switched off. You see, first of all, when Facebook cut off some of the government officials, it was also necessary to remind them that these social media platforms are here at the invitation of government. I have been to countries where there is no social media, even when they are technologically advanced. So government can stop the operationalization of all these social media platforms. But I think the major reason why this was done was that there is abuse of social media to some extent in Uganda, especially because of the excitement. People try to organize insurrection, to organize riots, demonstration through communication using social media. If you take an example of when Honorable Kyagulanyi was arrested in Luuka, the chaos which erupted in the country was largely occasioned by the communications through WhatsApp, Facebook, and social media and so forth. And as the campaign is heated up, we knew that these people, our friends from NUP and other opposition groups, were trying to organize that kind of insurrection again. And how do we get this information? There are many defectors who crossed from NUP to NRM in the run-up to elections. As a vice chairperson of Western Uganda, I was approached by many of the young people. Even when you talk of sectarianism, there is a coordinator from Ankole who came to my office here in the Ministry of Lands, and he told me, I want to leave NUP. And I said, why? Why are you leaving? He said, we had a meeting of coordinators, and some of the senior leaders retorted that if we take over power, we shall chase all these Banyankole and Westerners from Uganda. That was his own statement. I said, I am coordinating for you for Ankole. And then you make that statement. That was the reason why he crossed. So when we talk of sectarianism, we have information and evidence why we are saying this. So the major reason why there was this shutdown, which of course has inconvenienced everybody, including us, was for security reasons, to disable this kind of communication which facilitates